I've rewritten this post 5 times already. Every version sounded like I was bitter or resentful or just plain pissed off. Which, fine. Maybe I am. But when you give someone 3 years of your life and they throw it away like a fast food wrapper, you earn the right to be angry. So here it is, raw and unfiltered. I moved in with my grandfather when I was 22, fresh out of college. No clue what I wanted to do next, just that I needed to get out of my mom's place and figure out my life. And then Grandpa had a stroke. Not a massive one, but enough to rattle everyone. He couldn't drive anymore. Forgot how to use the stove. Confused Tuesday with Sunday. The family murmured about assisted living, about nurses, about someone should check in on him now and then. But no one did. So I did. I packed a duffel bag and moved into the guest room in his creaky, yellow house with the broken doorbell and the rose bushes he trimmed with surgical precision every spring. I told myself it was temporary. 6 months. Maybe a year. It turned into 3. The first year nearly broke me. He'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking it was morning, try to make eggs and leave the stove on. He hated the new pill schedule. Hated being reminded to take them even more. Some days he was himself, sharp, funny, full of stories about the Navy and how milk used to cost a dime. Other days he didn't know what month it was or why the mailman was stealing his bills from the mailbox. I worked remote during the day, took him to his doctor's appointments, paid his utility bills, reordered prescriptions, and cleaned up the wreckage of his forgetfulness. He once poured laundry detergent in the coffee pot. Another time, he fed the dog spaghetti with aspirin in it because he thought the pup looked like he had arthritis. And still, I stayed. Not because I'm some saint, but because he raised me. When my mom bounced between boyfriends and late-night shifts, Grandpa was the one who packed my school lunches, showed up at parent-teacher conferences, and taught me how to ride a bike. The second year got easier. We found a rhythm. Morning coffee together while he watched game shows and I checked my work emails. A walk in the afternoons if it wasn't raining. I'd cook. He complained that the chicken was dry, then lick the plate clean. By the 3rd year, I actually liked it. There was peace in the routine. His mind was slipping more, but his spirit stayed stubborn. He'd fall asleep mid-sentence in that old recliner with the duct-taped armrest, snoring while Jeopardy played in the background. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like home. Then he died. In his sleep. Peacefully. No pain. I found him in his recliner, a blanket over his lap, TV remote still in hand. I didn't cry right away. I called the ambulance. Then the family. Then I sat on the porch while the paramedics carried out the only person who ever made me feel safe. I expected. I don't know. A moment of clarity. Some kind of gesture from the universe. What I got was a slap in the face. 2 weeks after the funeral, I got a call. From a lawyer. He asked if I knew my aunt, Lisa, had been granted power of attorney and full ownership of the house. Excuse me? Apparently, she had him sign over the deed 2 weeks before he passed. Said it was to make sure the estate was in order. I never saw the paperwork. Never even heard about it. When I checked the date, my stomach sank. It was the day after one of his really bad episodes. He didn't know how to use the microwave, didn't recognize me, thought I was his brother who died in 1979. He wasn't competent. Not really. Not enough to be signing legal documents. But the ink was dry. She showed up to the funeral in a black dress that still had the tags on it, oversized sunglasses like she was auditioning for a soap opera, and croc tears that dried before the reception. And at the wake, over ham sandwiches and lukewarm coffee, she leaned in and said, "You'll need to be out by the end of the month. I have a buyer lined up." Like it was nothing. That house wasn't just a house. It was Grandpa's pride. His garden. His workshop in the garage with jars of screws labeled in shaky handwriting. His recliner. His vinyl records. His life. She wanted to flip it for a condo in Florida. So I packed my things. But not before packing everything that mattered. I didn't steal. I preserved. I took the records. Every single one. Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Glenn Miller. I took the photo albums. He had them organized by year in those dusty plastic bins under his bed. I took his Navy medals, his tool set, the faded flannel jacket he wore every fall, and the grandfather clock that chimed 4 minutes late, every hour on the hour. And I left a note. Not for her. For whoever bought the place. And she didn't realize, oh, this is where it gets good, she didn't realize I had access to everything. Grandpa trusted me with his accounts. I had the logins for the electric, the gas, the water, the internet. I paid those bills. Half of them with my own money. I had receipts. I managed his cloud drive. I installed the nanny cam in the kitchen after he fell one night, and I found him bleeding by the fridge. Guess what that nanny cam caught? My aunt, coaching him through the paperwork. Her voice, whispering, "Just sign here. No there. Don't worry, Daddy. It's just for the insurance. Trust me." His hand trembled. He asked twice what it was for. It wasn't illegal. Not technically. But it was close. Real close. I didn't threaten her. I didn't yell. I just made copies. When I left, I terminated every account under my name. Electricity? Cut. Internet? Gone. Security system? Canceled. Subscriptions? Done. Fridge? Empty. I left that house exactly how she treated Grandpa, lifeless. A week later, the phone started ringing. First it was her, then my mom, then some guy named Brent, the realtor. Apparently, the buyer backed out. Said the place smelled like mildew and the kitchen had a leak under the sink. Oh, yeah. I took the plunger. Then I sent a little care package to the potential buyer. No return address. Just a thumb drive with the nanny cam footage and a copy of Grandpa's cognitive report from the day she had him sign the deed. Labeled simply, "Thought you should know." The house listing disappeared a few days later. She tried to accuse me of theft, claimed I took sentimental property. So I did what anyone with internet access would do. I posted everything on Facebook. Photos of Grandpa's old letters, his records, the albums, captioned, "These aren't for sale. These are memories. If you cared, you'd have made them yourself." My cousins, who I hadn't spoken to in years, started demanding me. Said they thought she was the one taking care of him. That she always posted pictures of him on Christmas, called him her rock. Lies, all of it. She blocked me the next day. I'm renting now. Just a little apartment above a bakery. Smells like cinnamon in the mornings. I put his recliner by the window. I play his records some nights. Sinatra, mostly. Do I miss the house? No. I miss him. The rest? Just wood and drywall. But I'll say this. Don't play the victim when you're the villain in someone else's story. And don't be surprised when the one you used walks away and takes the soul of the place with them. I didn't hear from her for a while after the Facebook post. A blessed silence settled over my life. I started sleeping better, eating better. I finally unpacked the last box in my new apartment, a cardboard cube filled with old Polaroids, faded ticket stubs from baseball games, and Grandpa's dog tags wrapped in a handkerchief. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe she'd vanish to Florida and pretend none of it happened. But narcissists don't go down quiet. They regroup. They twist. And they come back louder. The first real sign of trouble was an envelope shoved under my door. No stamp. No name on the front. Just my address in blocky handwriting and a red ink note scribbled across the back. Consider this your warning. Inside was a cease and desist letter from a law office I'd never heard of, claiming I'd unlawfully removed items of value from Ms. Lisa Montgomery's legally owned residence. It listed items by description: vintage record player, Navy memorabilia, various handwritten letters, wooden rocking chair, antique, like some kind of estate catalog. It didn't scare me. It just pissed me off. I called the number listed on the letter. A receptionist answered. I gave my name, explained the situation, and she transferred me. Montgomery Estate, the man said, bored already. Yes, I'm the grandson who lived there for 3 years. There was a pause. Then a flat. You're not the executor. No, I'm the person who actually took care of him while the so-called executor was down in Boca tanning and Googling how to inherit a house from a senile man. I heard him breathe through his nose. You'll need to speak to your aunt directly. Oh, trust me. She doesn't want that smoke. I hung up before he could respond. That night, I dug through the folders I kept, the ones filled with documentation, medical reports, receipts, photos, notes from his doctor, the video footage timestamped and labeled, consent questionable at best. I uploaded the nanny cam clip to a private YouTube link. Not public. Not even unlisted. Just private for safekeeping. I emailed a copy to myself, then to 2 old friends. Then I saved it on a flash drive and stashed it in my sock drawer. I wasn't taking chances. 3 days later, the next move came. I got home from the grocery store and found my mailbox stuffed with printouts. Screenshots of my Facebook post. Comments from people saying things like, "She doesn't deserve any of it," and "You were the only one there. She's a parasite." And then, this made me laugh, someone had printed out one of my captions and circled it in red pen. "These aren't for sale. These are memories." Underneath, scrawled in what looked like lipstick, "You'll regret this." I guess she didn't block me as thoroughly as I thought. 2 nights after that, someone egged my window. I live above a bakery, remember? I rent from a woman named Sophia who makes the best damn blueberry muffins on earth and who threatened to beat someone with a rolling pin if they touched her property again. Sophia came out onto the fire escape in a robe and slippers and called the cops herself. It was a woman in a silver Lexus, she told them. Blonde, big sunglasses. Looked like a real housewife on a bender. I didn't say anything. Just showed them the mailbox contents. The lawyer's letter. The red ink threat. The cops weren't exactly swift in their action, but they did agree to write up a report and noted that, technically, I hadn't stolen anything. Sentimental property isn't real property in a legal sense, especially when there's no written inventory in the will. But they did advise me to be careful. Thanks, officer. After that, things got quieter. For a week. Then a message landed in my inbox from someone named Rita K_74. No profile photo. No bio. Just a message. You think you've won. Just wait. I responded once. Tell Lisa to stop hiding behind sock puppets. Or does she need me to post the video publicly next time? Blocked. Instantly. I went to bed that night unsure if I should laugh or check under my car for a tracking device. But what I didn't expect came the next morning when I got a knock on my door. It was a man in a blazer holding a camera bag. Are you Daniel Carter? He asked. Yeah. I'm from Channel 9. We're doing a segment on caregiver exploitation and elder abuse. Got your name from one of your cousins. Said you might have a story to share? I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. He asked for a quote. I told him, I gave 3 years of my life to a man who gave me a childhood. Then someone who couldn't be bothered to call on birthdays tried to erase me with a pin and a forged smile. So yeah, I've got a story. He smiled and handed me a card. If you decide to talk, give me a call. I didn't call. Not yet. But I thought about it. I kept thinking about it as I sat in Grandpa's chair that night, drinking the cheap beer he used to like, listening to his record skip every fourth note because the needle was worn. I looked around my little apartment and realized it wasn't much. Peeling paint, creaky floors, a crooked window. But it was mine, and he was still here, in a way. Not in the house, not in the wall she stole, but in this. In the chair, and the music, and the smell of peppermint oil that lingered from his aftershave. And then, right as I was starting to feel okay again, a final message came. A letter. From the buyer. The original buyer. Typed. Neat. Formal. Dear Mr. Carter. Thank you for the information you shared. It was not only helpful, it was critical. I have withdrawn my offer on the Montgomery property and have begun my own legal inquiry into the conditions under which the deed was transferred. I wish you peace, and I hope your grandfather rests well. No signature. Just initials. D. L. I stared at it for a long time. Not because it shocked me, but because it was the first time in this whole ordeal that someone treated me like the only person who ever told the truth. If you'd asked me 6 months ago what justice looked like, I'd have said, a courtroom, a gavel, and my aunt's smug face crumpling as a judge told her she had no right. I used to fantasize about it. Her standing there in her overpriced heels, trying to explain how Daddy just wanted her to have the house, while I played the nanny cam footage on a screen behind her. Full Dolby surround sound. But that's not how justice actually shows up. Sometimes it's quieter, slower, slips in the back door and takes a seat without announcing itself. That letter from the buyer? That was the first knock. The second came a week later when I got a call from someone claiming to be Lisa's new realtor. Apparently, she was trying to relist the house after giving it a little cosmetic refresh. New paint, clean carpets, a potted plant or two. I said, and you're calling me because I was told you might have some, lingering involvement with the property. I didn't say yes or no. I just asked, is she trying to sell the vinyl collection with the house? Or the chair you died in? Because if so, she might want to read a few copyright laws and maybe a medical ethics textbook while she's at it. He paused. I'm guessing that means there are issues. You could say that. He thanked me and hung up. I don't know if he dropped her as a client. I hope so. Honestly, I hope she gets blacklisted by every real estate agency within 100 miles. Let her go condo hunting in Florida with a cardboard sign reading, "Will manipulate relatives for property." That same week, I got an email from my mom. Subject line, talk. That's it. Just talk. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for 3 days. It just sat there in my inbox like a ticking bomb. I finally opened it at 2:14 a.m. after 2 drinks and 1 bad dream. The body of the email was short. I know you're mad. I'm not defending her. But you're burning bridges you can't rebuild. Maybe it's time to stop. Stop? She wanted me to stop? I replied with one line. You didn't visit him for over a year. Stay out of this. She didn't write back. Good. And then came the third knock. Metaphorically. It started with a message request on Instagram from a woman named Teresa. Profile photo. 2 golden retrievers and Santa hats. Her bio said she was a nurse, retired. Her message. I was your grandfather's home nurse for 6 months before you moved in. I remember you. You brought donuts the first day. He adored you. I have something you might want to see. I clicked into her profile, half expecting a scam. She sent a photo. A scanned, handwritten letter. Grandpa's writing. Dated 6 months before he died. If anything happens to me, I want Daniel to have the house. He's the only one who's been here. The only one who's made this place feel like home again. Don't let the others push him out. This house is his. Grandpa. No signature. Just those words. She told me he'd written it after a particularly bad fall, when he thought he might not wake up the next day. He gave it to her, said, if they ever start circling like vultures, make sure he gets this. My hands were shaking when I printed it out. It wasn't legal. Not binding. But it was something. I mailed a copy to the lawyer who'd sent me that first cease and desist, along with a note. You're right. I wasn't the executor. I was just the one who kept him alive long enough for the people who didn't care to show up late and make claims. Here's what he actually wanted. Do with it what you will. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a probate clerk. They were reopening the estate review. Someone had submitted the letter as part of a challenge to the deed transfer. Anonymous submission. But I knew who it was. Teresa. They asked if I'd be willing to provide a sworn statement about Grandpa's mental condition on the date he signed over the house. I said yes. Then I took it a step further. I went back to that reporter. The one from Channel 9. I called him and said, let's talk. We met at a diner. I told him everything on record. About the stroke, the caregiving, the manipulation, the papers she slipped in front of a confused old man, the footage. The fallout. He asked why I was going public now. I told him, because silence lets people like her win. And because if even one other caregiver out there sees this and realizes they're not crazy, that it is abuse, then it's worth it. The segment aired the following week. Small, local, but impactful. The headline, Who Really Deserves the House? When Caregiving Collides with Inheritance. They blurred names, faces, but the story was clear. And Lisa? She lost it. I know because she emailed me directly. First time since the funeral. No subject line. Just, you think you're better than me. You think you're some kind of hero. But he was my father. Mine. You had no right. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because a week later, the for sale sign in front of Grandpa's house disappeared again. No buyer. No realtor. Just a locked door and a dying garden. And then, another letter arrived. From the clerk of the court. The deed was being formally reviewed. Power of attorney under scrutiny. If found improper, the transfer could be voided. It wasn't over yet. But it wasn't over for her, either. I didn't expect it to go this far. When I first moved out, I told myself I'd just take what mattered and walk away. Let karma do her thing. But karma's a slow-moving train, and sometimes you have to lay the tracks yourself. The day I walked into the courthouse for my statement, I wore Grandpa's flannel. The same one he'd wrap around me when I was a kid, still smelling faintly of coffee and cedar even now. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I just needed to feel like he was still with me. The court building was smaller than I imagined. Just one hallway, chipped floor tiles, buzzed from flickering overhead lights. I sat on a hard bench next to people who didn't know me, didn't know what I'd lived through. But I wasn't nervous. I was ready. When they called me in, I gave my sworn affidavit. Walked through everything. The decline. The caregiving. The footage. The incident with the documents. I handed over the printed scans of Grandpa's note. They asked if I had any other supporting documents. I have 3 years of receipts, utility bills, and digital records, I said. I wasn't his blood executor, but I was his caretaker, his power of presence. He trusted me with his life. That should count for something. The clerk looked at me with something like sympathy. We'll take this into consideration. You may be called to testify if this goes to hearing. I nodded. I'll be here. A week passed. Then another. I didn't hear from Lisa again, not directly, anyway. But her silence was its own kind of war. Passive, seething. Like she was waiting for her moment. Or maybe just scrambling for her next move. Then Sophia, the bakery landlord, called me one morning. You should come down here, she said. Channel 9 just ran another piece. You're gonna want to see it? I thought she meant another caregiver spotlight. It wasn't. It was Lisa. Apparently, she'd done her own interview, framed herself as the grieving daughter, used phrases like taken advantage of and family betrayal. She cried on camera, real tears this time, and said, "He was my father. I loved him." But in the end, people can twist things to make you look like the villain. They even aired part of her home video footage. Her laughing with Grandpa in the garden, him grinning, holding a tomato like it was a trophy. She was playing the long con. But then the reporter, bless him, cut to a clip of my segment. Played the line I'd said under my breath. She only came around when she had something to gain. They cut back to the anchor with an eyebrow raised and a faint, interesting contrast. The internet did what the internet does. Within hours, the story was circulating. Not just locally. It hit a national caregiving advocacy page. Then Reddit. Then a few viral tweet threads. One of my cousins messaged me, "Bro, you're on TikTok." Like, everywhere. Comments poured in. People sharing their own stories of inheritance theft, family betrayal, legal gaslighting. And in the middle of all of it, Grandpa's house. A symbol of every elder who was ever treated like an asset instead of a person. A week later, I got the letter. Official. Stamped. From the court. Deed transfer voided due to lack of mental competency at time of signing. Property to revert to estate. Next of kin to refile inheritance claims. I read it 3 times before I let myself breathe. Then I laughed. I laughed. It wasn't over. I'd still need a probate hearing. There'd be a dozen hoops to jump through. But I had a chance. A real one. Not just to fight back, but to win. The next day, I drove to the house. The for sale sign was gone. So were the flower pots Lisa had planted in an attempt to stage the place. The grass had grown wild. The roses were wilted. The front porch light was hanging by a wire, but it was still standing. I walked up the steps and peeked through the front window. Empty. Except for one thing. His recliner. She hadn't taken it after all. Maybe she didn't want the stain of it. Maybe it wouldn't fit in her new Florida condo dreams. But there it was. In the same spot. Facing the TV. The indent from his shoulder still faintly visible. I didn't go inside. Not yet. I just stood there with my hand on the porch rail, watching the wind shake the shutters. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I felt proud. I thought about all the people who'd messaged me. Strangers who said I made them feel seen. Families who said they were opening conversations because of the story. Nurses who thanked me for speaking up. And I realized something. This wasn't just about a house. It never was. It was about memory. Legacy. The idea that people aren't disposable just because they can't remember your birthday or burn the toast twice in a row. It was about showing up, even when it's inconvenient. It was about love that costs you something. The probate court still hasn't made the final decision, but I'm okay with waiting. I've got Grandpa's chair. I've got his records. I've got 3 years of memories nobody can erase. And I've got peace. Lisa hasn't reached out since the ruling. My mom hasn't, either. The house sits quiet now. But one day, I'll walk back in. Not as a guest. Not as a tenant. But as the one person who always belonged there.